Hello, 110. It's been a while since we did one of these, so I just want to make sure that we're all hanging in there and alive and well. I know, like, for example, I have kleptomania, and when it gets really bad, I take something. No? Okay. Termite walks into the bar and says, "Hey, is the bartender here?" Anyway, this week we continue our work with Poetics. Let's take a look at where you have some resources as well as where to turn the database in and get you on.
Like I said, week 12, we're going to continue a little bit of work with poetry, and you have to write an explication of poetry, which really just means you have to write about what it is that you think the poet means. And Billy Collins reflects the absurdity of this task here with his introduction to poetry. I asked them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. So yes, I recognize the absurdity of the task that I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to do exactly what he's saying is sort of the more violent and absurd things to do to a poem. Instead, we're supposed to be comfortable with the hazy nature of its existence and sort of what does it really mean? I don't know. You have to lean into that I don't know. But you also have to write an explication. So now what? I'm glad you asked. You have a bunch of resources that I've given you links to here in the announcement, and they're actually under the modules for week 12. If you go open the week 12 module, you'll find them there too. But there's some help with the textbook. There's some help for how to annotate a poem. Some great handouts for actual writing explications from Chapel Hill. They'll give you all the sort of steps for walking your way through it. Some of these things you may need, some of them you might not need. Like talking about meter might not be appropriate in your poem. Rhythm might be the more important, or vice versa, right? It just depends on the poem that you're looking at. But they give you a nice, neat way for how to write one, and then they give you an example of one, right? So you need a good example of one? Here you go. That's an explication of a poem. Then I've given you the thematic table of contents here. Remember, we're trying to keep some of your stories and your efforts in analysis linked together. So if you want to know, okay, based on the story I read, what theme or what poem fits, take a look at the thematic table of contents and see if you can't find it. For example, if you were interested in Sonny's Blues, sort of loosely under the theme of crime and punishment, then you might also go looking for Langston Hughes's poem, Ballad of the Landlord, right? Or perhaps you go looking for Carp Poem from Terence Hayes. But either way, that handout will give you some of the other things that are like or similar to the things that you've already been investigating. Then I'm giving you typical week directions, as well as a little resource to note the way that in MLA we quote lines of poetry, both in the work cited and in the text itself. Okay? You got to upload your initial post by Thursday this week, November 5th at 11:59. I've moved it over one day in an effort to give you the extra time, since this is, though a seemingly simple task, since it's a poem, not an entire story. I think oftentimes, because of its hazy nature, right, it can be a little more challenging. So I've given you a little more time to try to wade your way through it. Then you've got to respond to two classmates by Sunday at 11:59. So if you have any questions about your poem specifically, or just some of your ideas, is this legitimate? Am I doing this right? Please don't hesitate to email and ask. I'm happy to try and help. But there's your week in review.
That's it. Hopefully you got everything you need. Hopefully your Halloween was as pleasant as could be. If you have any other questions or concerns, or you run into issues with your poem or your explication, please don't hesitate to reach out via email, and I'll try and get you help in whatever way works best. Happy reading.